And we had talked about how one day there will be a global pandemic of this nature, and it's really quite astonishing that this is actually happening now.
All right. Me, Mac. Thank you for being on my show. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Michael?
I am doing just fine. We're both talking from the Bay Area, right? But you actually have something very, very relevant to what's happening today. And you're the Director of Translational Medicine at the Genome Center within Stanford Medicine, right? Did I get that right?
That's correct. The Stanford Genome Technology Center.
Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean that you're leading the translational medicine?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on this show.
Of course.
You're doing a great job. This is wonderful and very exciting.
Thank you.
And so at Stanford, your alma mater, the Stanford Genome Technology Center is a center where we use genetics, microbiology, lots of different technology, work with engineering, and it's a multidisciplinary group that really is involved with lots of innovation and new product development used to study all sorts of different healthcare related problems as well as biotech type of problems. So I work with Dr. Ron Davis, and he was one of the leaders in looking at the human genome.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. And actually, your life story is very unique, and I think that's what I want us to start, because you're starting out as a patient yourself. So you're a swimmer, exercise enthusiast, suffering a chronic disease of lower back pain. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, low back pain was just part of my story. To be quite honest, this has been about a 20-year journey, and so the reason translational medicine is so important to me is because it really is a field in which you have to understand the patients and what their needs are. You have to understand what research is doing, like what researchers are looking for and doing. And then you have to be able to take all of those things together, bridge physicians, researchers, and patients' needs, and come up with the most strategic way to get to a goal. And so really understanding what the needs of the various stakeholders that are involved in, for example, designing a diagnostic test, or learning how to use yeast for all new sort of purposes. You really science can be done oftentimes in a way that is very nuanced, and so being able to guide researchers to say this is actually what's relevant and this is what the patients need is really where I fit in.
Okay, but you have the unique position of transitioning from patient that you think 20-year journey, you underwent a massive surgery, and you can empathize with the path that a lot of people in similar situations, not necessarily the same disease per se, but different situations are facing, and then you're transitioning to being a physician, and now you're being acting as a researcher and trying to innovate past what we know today, right?
That's right. So about 20 years ago, I had mononucleosis, which is a very common viral infection, Epstein-Barr virus. 95% of the population actually has it, but somehow, for some reason, in my immune system, that virus triggered something and caused an immunodeficiency. And therefore, I became more and more sick. Ultimately, I was diagnosed with a condition called chronic fatigue syndrome, which is now currently named myalgic encephalomyelitis. And,
I understood the first one. The second one I didn't understand.
It is a mouthful. We call it ME for short. And you may have heard a little bit about it because now with COVID-19, what we're finding is with SARS patients, COVID-19 patients who've had all sorts of other communicable diseases, many of them end up with this unrelenting sort of fatigue as well as other problems, dizziness, brain fog, difficulty thinking. And so what we're doing at the Stanford Genome Technology Center is we've heavily put many of the resources towards trying to come up with a diagnostic test for this illness and solving the illness and looking at its molecular underpinnings.
Crazy. You know, that's exactly why I love this show so much, because, you know, we're preparing to do this episode together, and out of the blue I get an email from you saying like Michael, just FYI, we're working on, you know, on this crazy development that's happening with COVID, and we're the front, and I'm so excited to talk to you about that. What is it like being now on the forefront and discovering with the world, but a little bit before the world, how, you know, this unbelievable pandemic is taking its shape? Like really trying to make sense of all the confusion there.
Well, to be honest, at times it can be frustrating because we see things ahead of time. And, you know, as scientists, researchers, and physicians, we need to prove certain things using research. However, based on prior viruses, we can have some idea of what is in store and have some predictions. I was speaking with my colleague and boss, Dr. Ron Davis, about 2 years ago, and we had talked about how one day there will be a global pandemic of this nature, and it's really quite astonishing that this is actually happening now. So to be doing the work that we're doing, it's very exciting. And the way that I look at it is, you know, there's so many things from a scientific perspective that we need to still learn. But to be able to be right at the leading edge of discovery is so exciting. And what I really would love people to know is that, you know, I had an illness. I went through medical school, I went through residency, I went through fellowship training, practiced as a physician, ended up here, did some work with healthcare and technology, and really dove deep a long time ago into app development and how we can use mobile applications to really understand what's happening to humans. And at this point now, we have wearables that can plug into apps. We have all sorts of really cool, innovative techniques to gather data so that we can tell patient stories and connect it to the research. Because oftentimes we do all these really great molecular and genetic tests and whatnot, but what we're trying to do is get real-time data from people and make sure that that's clean and precise data, and that's a huge challenge. But somebody's got to do it, right?
100%. And, you know, so, you know, talk to me a little bit about this journey of yours as a researcher. And, you know, coming in as somebody who, you know, a young entrepreneur, software engineering, I don't get exposed too much to biotech and you know, work with genomes and understanding the human body the way that you do. How do you even get started in this field? And how do you, like, what's your day-to-day like?
Oh, that's a great question. So my day-to-day is very different. I don't have, you know, a typical day, and what I'm asked to accomplish in the center varies depending on which team I'm working with.
Right.
So, for example, right now I'm working on a project where we're developing an app so that we can continue to collect data from patients who have COVID-19 to see what percentage of patients end up developing this chronic long-standing condition. So recently, Chris Cuomo on CNN stated that he also has this condition. And Anthony Fauci has also talked about how so many people are ending up with long-standing, long-term, debilitating issues as a result of COVID. And so for me, this has been my life's work, and I'm so passionate about it because I was one of those people who was never supposed to make it. I was one of those people who was too sick to finish medical school or too ill to do residency.
Wow.
And so, you know, for me, finally doing my own research and figuring out what was going on and being able to maneuver healthcare, because as a physician, I understood how the healthcare system worked. For me, that's a great story personally. But what I have concerns about is, what about the people who don't know how to navigate the healthcare system? How do we plug them in? And then how do we get people like you, Michael, to come and help us parse through all this data, use artificial intelligence to make sense of the voluminous amounts of data that we're getting, and to really help us find answers and clusters and uncover a lot of problems that we find, especially the immune system. The immune system is extremely interesting, and it's kind of, we know things, but there's a lot that we don't know. And we need people to help us from the data side. We need people to help us from the technology and wearables side. We need, fun, engaging apps. We need
100%.
to combine that with the researchers.
I think that's incredible. I'm actually very close to a startup back in Tel Aviv called Immune AI. They just recently came out of stealth mode, and they're trying to use artificial intelligence to uncover the immune system and to help do research on that front. But then, coming in as a researcher, how do you, as a doctor, now think about this integration with engineering and artificial intelligence? Because I'm assuming that most doctors in your position don't necessarily have, the technological expertise of years of dealing with data. And all of a sudden, you understand that in order to really make sense of the research you're doing, you're going to need support from people who have no idea about what you're doing, but they're experts in artificial intelligence, and you have to find this weird combination, right?
Yeah. So, first of all, I have an amazing father who is an engineer and computer scientist himself. So being around a lot of computer science people growing up, I recognize the need for technology to really help us solve problems. So he was in supply chain management. So I was able to apply his supply chain management theory to how to run a practice fluidly. I think that I'm fortunate in that I work with such amazing, brilliant researchers, and I'm learning every single day. So how I ended up here, to be quite honest, I kind of let life guide me. It was quite serendipitous. I had done genetics research in undergrad, and I was thinking about doing an MD PhD, but they didn't have an MD PhD program at the time. So I just did my MD, but unfortunately I became ill. And so I got kind of frustrated at being both a medical student and a patient. So afterwards, I left medicine and I worked with an internet startup company. And then so we were doing UI UX before UI UX ever even existed.
When are we talking about? What year is this?
This was 2004.
Wow.
Right. 2000.
Wait, but that startup, it was in the medical space, right?
No, actually it was completely different. Completely different. It was a language learning company called Mango Languages, and it's still in existence, and they're doing wonderfully. But I always wondered where all of these different experiences I had, when it would all come together. And interestingly, then I was able to apply UI, UX, and what I had learned about that to creating mobile healthcare apps. I worked with UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center in Harvard, and we had done a lot of work on creating an app, and I'd done some advising in the past.
Wow.
So being able to integrate just these various experiences, if there's one thing I would say to people, is don't be afraid to try something new, because the convergence of learnings from different fields is really where innovation comes from. It really teaches you to think differently. And I encourage people, there's a lot of times students will say to me, oh my gosh, I want to take time off of school, but my parents don't want me to. And I'll sit down and talk to the parents and say, you know what, that experience one day will really serve, your son or daughter really well. So don't be afraid to try new things, because one day, just like in my life now, everything manages to make sense and come together.
And all of a sudden now you're dealing with, the same disease that you had to deal with for 20 years, but now you're dealing with it from a research perspective, and what are the implications and how to help others through it. But I mean, then talk to me a little bit about this, teaching style and mentorship. You're alluding to that, and right before our call, you mentioned to me that is one of the things that you're really passionate about. So what is teaching for you, or mentorship, guiding others through their own journey, which, like you're mentioning, is very sometimes difficult to do when you're getting, a lot of pressure from different sources, and it's hard to navigate your own path.
So to me, I was very fortunate. I started my residency and joined our academic association, the Association of Academic Physiatrists. And there I was very inspired because we had lots of physician leaders that took all of us on. And what I learned is you can never have enough mentors, because each mentor may have something different to offer. You know, one might be more interested in media affairs, another might be more interested in technology. And there's so many different things you can learn from each one of them. So I always tell people, don't be afraid to seek out as many mentors as you can. And for me, one day when I'm gone, it's important to bring other people into the universe who will be doers and who will be thinkers and who are excited about forging ahead. You know, we're living right now in a very tumultuous time.
Yes.
Tumultuousness doesn't mean that we have to fade away. It means this is an opportunity to really seek deeply what's in your soul and pull that resilience out and say, what can we do to make this better? Because there's always been times in history where there's been scary things that have gone on, whether it be wars, this, that, or the other thing. But it's really the people who pulled themselves up and said, how do we fix this? That's really what pushes humanity forward.
Yeah.
And
I think one of the greatest, one of the most common phrases of the Stanford Business School is "Don't waste a good crisis," right?
yes,
I don't remember who coined it. I think it was one of the, maybe it was Churchill or something. But I think no, I think it's very true, and it's not just in the realm of how to leverage economically a crisis that's happening, and that's a lot of where entrepreneurs go to. But also, how do in terms of mentorship and teaching, how do you take this time of introspection and understand what you want to do? And I have a lot of people that I speak to that have been taking this time out and sort of reevaluating what their priorities are, which you're forced to do when you're when all of a sudden you don't have all of the experiences outside that are sort of like noise that don't allow you to look internally, right?
absolutely. You bring up a really good point. Breaks for self-reflection are really important, because otherwise you end up on a completely different path than where you want to be. It's very easy to be pulled in different directions.
Sure. I mean, what are you excited about? What really gets you up in the morning and makes you like so passionate and glowing throughout the day?
First of all, learning. I also still continue to have mentors. So every day learning about what we can do with healthcare technology, all the research. I mean, reading constantly, throwing myself into the work. But what really excites me is this disease that I've suffered from for 20 years that has received very little attention and very little funding. Unfortunately, there's a pandemic. But fortunately, we have the opportunity, like you said, now to study this and understand what's happening. And, it's too bad that it took a global pandemic for us to be able to seek out the answers to what is happening inside of the body as people transition from getting a virus and what happens long term.
Right.
But we have to grab it with both hands. And so for me, trying to let people know what's happening and get funding for this kind of work, and speaking with the different researchers and talking to the FDA about how we're going to get things improved. But what really grabs me is, how we can leverage technology now to answer questions that we could never answer before.
Sure.
There's so much data out there. And so we need technology to be able to really parse through all that information that's coming at us.
Yeah, and I mean, that's exactly where I think the world is headed right now, right? We're seeing this boom of understanding that now we have to leverage data science with the work of researchers and doctors like yourself to really make sense of what's happening. And I am personally very, very excited to see where we're headed and what's going to happen in the next few years. I'm especially excited to be a part of this transition and get my own hands dirty with a lot of this work. I mean, before we leave, I have to ask you the most important question: 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Let's see. Inquisitive.
Okay.
Fierce.
Fierce. What does that mean?
Fierce means seeing that something's challenging and going for it anyway.
Okay.
And not being. So I guess the next one would be confident. Confident that you will figure it out, and resilient.
inquisitive, fierce, and confident. I love that. I think that's exactly what it takes to do the work that you're doing. So no surprises there.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's been
Thank you. This was great. Thank you so for your generosity. Thank you for your time. This was just inspiring. I'm personally, I think that it's, I can't wait to get deeper into this world and understand it better, because this is where the impact is at the end. And then it's literally, saving lives and making, helping people going through pain live their lives better, healthier, and in less pain. And, coming in from the data science side myself, I'm just excited to see this harmony. I'm very excited.
The one last thing I do want to let everybody know is that we estimate that 2.5 million Americans have chronic fatigue syndrome or myalgic encephalomyelitis. And there's been less than $5 per patient of NIH monies that have been put towards this.
Wow.
Just to give you a little bit of background, there's 950,000 patients with HIV. This is 75% of patients with this illness are either homebound or bedbound. So
Wow.
It's a massive cause of disability. So if you think about it, about at least 10% of patients with SARS developed this. Now, if 10% of patients with SARS-2 or COVID-19 develop this, we have a big problem on our hands. So we really have no choice but to really, figure out what's going on, because perhaps we can prevent things from happening to other people that can destroy lives.
Unbelievable. Ami, thank you very much for the inspiration.
Thank you, Michael.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
I look forward to chatting again. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.